With me in the studio are Dr. Nancy James, who is chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, and Sam Klein, who is student chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital and also student rabbi at the Jewish Congregation of Fairbanks. Thank you, two, for coming in this morning to come talk to me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it. We're talking about sexual assault issues, sexual abuse issues here in Alaska, which is a huge, as we all know, huge problem. But there are, I would hope, obviously, efforts being made to try and make a difference about this. And one of the ones we want to start off talking about is My Grandma's House. And that's one of, can you tell me a bit about what's going on with this particular program? It sounds really exciting. It's something coming from the villages, from what I understand, or what's sort of the background behind My Grandma's House?
Right. I've been visiting the villages this summer to talk about forgiveness and talk about my new books. Actually, I write all these books about a woman who was sexually assaulted. Mm-hmm. And in Tanana, a woman named Cynthia Erickson has started a program called My Grandma's House. And when I visited Tanana, we had a group of women getting together, talking about issues in Alaska and things that are going on. And Cynthia Erickson talked about her program. I was so excited to hear about it. It's got a lot of support from TCC, Tanana Chiefs Conference. And she says that a lot of the, she's aware, we're all aware, a lot of the kids in Alaska have been harmed by molestation or incest. And so she decided not to just to sit back and think about it, but she decided to organize. So she got all sorts of people together, and she started a group called My Grandma's House, and so she's been going all around Alaska with it. But they were in Fairbanks last Friday at the Tribal Hall, and they're finishing their healing journey right now.
Yeah, they're kind of taking this on the road, from what I understand, right?
That's right.
So they've been traveling to a number of different places. And what kind of things are they doing as they go from location to location here in Alaska?
Well, the young people, I guess they are mainly teenagers. She had a group of young people that I met last Friday, and they have committed themselves to healing from whatever has happened to them. Mm-hmm. And so they get together. They were there at the Tribal Hall in a circle praying. They're singing. They were playing drums. They were sharing their stories, and the whole community was right behind them. So at Fairbanks, they took a walk together. They held signs about how they are going to recover. They're not going to be victims. And so then they traveled to different places throughout Alaska, like in a caravan, right, talking about this.
Yeah, and one of the things I liked about one of their taglines is, "We are the people we've been waiting for."
Isn't that lovely?
And I just thought, wow, that is an amazing, right. I don't know why we keep thinking there's, I don't know, from watching the movies, like someone will be, like God will just drop this person among us. There'll be a beam of light, and suddenly we'll be like, "Oh, there you are, awesome. Where have you been? We need you." No, that's us, right? And what does that mean for you, Sam, in terms of your role at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, your role at the Jewish Congregation of Fairbanks? How do you see your role at the hospital when it comes to some of these sexual assault issues we have in the interior and addressing these things? What does this all kind of mean to you?
Well, I think working with Reverend Nancy James, it's basically our responsibility to be present and aware of the problems that face Alaskans, especially these children of native villages and such. So when they come to our front door and they tell us what's going on, the first thing we can do, I think, is just be present, to be with them and to not ignore it. I have a statistic that I think 1 in 15 children are exposed to violence within their families. And 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to these violence. Wow. So the prevalence of that kind of domestic violence is so real that first thing we can do is just be present and not ignore the issue.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Nancy, is there anything that's given, we've got My Grandma's House. Is there anything, what kind of gives you hope that there could be change here coming to Alaska? Obviously it's something where I feel like people are talking more about. I've only been here since about 2005, but I feel like in the last year or so, people have been talking about this more. Maybe it's just since I've been on the radio for the last year. I've been paying attention more. But where do you see hope for the future here in this regard, in terms of, I mean, we're like number one on a lot of lists we don't want to be number one on?
I see a lot of hope right now, and part of the hope actually is you, Rob. I really appreciate you making this time available for us to talk about it. But there's hope everywhere. When I talk to groups about this situation, nobody denies it, and that's a wonderful thing.
Okay.
Nobody is saying this isn't really going on. These kids are making it up, or we're exaggerating it. I haven't heard that one time.
Okay.
We have a wonderful forensic nurse unit at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital people can seek help with. And then groups like My Grandma's House, the fact that TCC is supporting this. There's just a lot of signs of movement right now, which I really, really appreciate. There is a sense that recovery needs to happen not only just for the victims, but for the perpetrators. And so if you've been a perpetrator of this sexual assault, I want to let you know there is hope for you. And you are very, very valuable for us, that we need you to also reach out and get the recovery that you need. And these kids right now on their literal journey are kind of showing us the spiritual and metaphorical journey we all need to go on.
Right.
That it's time to just seek healing for us and for both sides, all parties involved with this problem.
Right, and I mean, it's been a little while since you were on the show, but last time we talked a fair amount about one of your recent books, about Madame Goyan. Am I getting the name close?
Yeah, in this country we call her Guyon, and France they say Guyon, Madame Guyon.
Oh, right, Guyon. It was in the ballpark, but
yeah.
You want to just give us a quick refresher on her story and how it relates to our issues with sexual assault here in Alaska?
Right. Madame Guyon was a little girl who lived on the Loire River, a little bit south of Paris, and her father was a mayor of a major village in France. And when she was 15, she was sexually assaulted by a neighbor. And so she was very, very, very sad about this and upset about it. But then she had kind of an enlightened dad, and she was thinking of killing herself. And then she went to her father about it and said, I really need help with this. This has been a terrible thing. And so he said, let's talk to somebody. And so they went off and talked to a monk at the time. And he told her, he said, you have everything in your heart right there for happiness and healing, but you've got to go in and find that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very powerful. So I brought a little poem in. I brought a little poem, and so she went on a long healing journey. But at the end of her life, she wrote a cute line. She said, what contentment. The soul is happy. My life is delicious.
Wow.
Isn't that a cute line?
Right. I'm sure it took her a long time to get to that point, though, right?
It took years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what's the name of that book again?
This book is called Divine Love. Divine Love by Jean de la Motte Guyon. And it's translated. But she wrote all these poems about how when we reach out for help, people are there to help. And that just speak the words that are in your heart. Speak the words of truth, and you're going to find the right people.
Yeah. And so what do you have to say? Because there's such high numbers of victims of sexual assault here in Alaska. What do you have to say to them, especially those who maybe never reported it, maybe it happened a long time ago? What can they do if this is something that happened when they were kids and this happened 5-10 years ago, and it sort of seems like I assume it might feel in some ways like it's too late, like, oh, if I was going to say something, I should have said something a long time ago. Do you have any advice to these folks who are still carrying this suffering with them?
I absolutely do have some advice. First off, I speak from a religious perspective. I have a PhD in religious studies, not psychology, but all the studies show that sometimes sexual abuse doesn't even come up in our mind for decades. So there was a woman who was sexually molested as a kid who said that she wasn't completely aware of it till she was 50 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so our brain and our psyche has a way of hiding traumas, which is good. We need to survive. But if it's come up later, it's just as important. Find a counselor and talk about it. So even if it's happened 40 years ago, there's help for you. Don't keep it a secret. Don't feel bad about yourself and why you waited so long. Today's the time. Reach out for a counselor. Reach out for some help with it.
Right. So you would suggest just find a counselor here in the interior that you're comfortable with talking about it, or are there any other resources you would suggest for folks? I mean, can they come to the hospital?
Well, they do have, if you've been assaulted, my first advice is do not clean yourself up,
right?
Which is a kind of an instinct, but you go to the hospital.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, we got to take a quick break. It's 8:17, 59 degrees above. I'm talking with Dr. Nancy James, chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, and Sam Klein, student chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital and student rabbi at the Jewish Congregation of Fairbanks, about sexual assault and child abuse issues here in Alaska, all over Alaska. We'll be back in a moment.
In some parts around here, the roads require a lot more than just the basics. Now, if that's you, drive like a pro in a 2019 GMC. Their entire lineup is built to take on the unexpected and designed to meet your needs, like the powerful presence of the 2019 GMC Sierra, offering excellent towing capability, power, and muscle, and the world's first multi-pro tailgate. Now, if an SUV is more your style, then take command of the road in a 2019 GMC Acadia. Because your life is constantly on the move, Acadia accommodates up to 7 in style, comfort, and space. If you want a smaller SUV with plenty of power, then traverse the wilderness in a 2019 GMC Terrain, where styling meets exceptional utility and performance, offering a fold-flat front passenger seat, 60/40 split folding second-row seats, and hands-free power liftgate. Live like a pro. We are professional grade. GMC. Visit GMC of Fairbanks.
White Spruce Trailers has the biggest trailer selection in the state, with over 600 in-stock trailers to choose from. Getting a permanent change of station, White Spruce has enclosed cargo trailers from 6 feet all the way up to 26 feet and everything in between. Their cargo trailers are top name brands, Cargo Mate, Mission, and Mirage, and they're all backed by a full-service warranty. White Spruce Trailers, 10 Mile Richardson, or online at whitespruce.com.
White Spruce Trailer Sales, whitespruce.com. Whitespruce.com.
The apartment internet, a realm of cyberspace where you can find a new place to be any of the limitless pet-loving yous you so choose. Like the you who wants felines in your here and meow. Or the you who has an affinity for a more fetching species.
Good boy.
Or the you who yearns for a life full of porpoise. Become your best animal-loving self with limitless listings on apartments.com. Change your apartment, change the world.
Visit the Prospector to prepare for all of your summer activities, whether it's hiking, camping, fishing, floating the river, biking, or working. The friendly staff at the Prospector can help you choose the right gear from brands like the North Face, Under Armour, and Keen. Stop by today at 1512 Cushman.
Follow his paths from a childhood in Hawaii to adult adventures deep in the Caribbean. Follow his journeys through the psyche of several of his patients to both success and deadly failure. Order the audiobook Inside Out, The Making of a Psychologist from Audible.com, Amazon, or iTunes. Find more information at wbward.com. Among those born today, the man who was known as the Center Square, Paul Lind. Other birthdays today include Malcolm McDowell, Tim Allen, and Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. You have the right to remain silent. These words came to the public's attention on this date in 1966. This was when the Supreme Court ruled in the landmark case Miranda versus Arizona that criminal suspects must be informed of their rights. You Only Live Twice, the fifth movie featuring James Bond, was released in American theaters on this date in 1967.
The long and winding road.
The Beatles hit the top of the charts for the last time on this date in 1970. Today was when The Long and Winding Road hit number 1, and it would be the final number 1 hit for the Fab Four. A dark chapter in Michael Jackson's life came to a close on this date in 2005. After a grueling 16-week trial, Jackson was finally acquitted of child molestation. That's a look at Thursday, June 13th. To find out what happened on this or any other day of the year, just visit my website at wbward.com. That address again is wbward.com.
A memory is shot.
My legs feel like lead.
Every muscle in my body is screaming.
So why does everyone think the problem is in my head?
Chronic fatigue syndrome can be as isolating as it is debilitating, especially when those around you don't understand what you're going through. If you're experiencing extreme exhaustion coupled with difficulty sleeping and concentrating, body pain and flu-like symptoms, you could have chronic fatigue syndrome. But you're not alone. More than 1 million Americans suffer from CFS, but less than 20% have been diagnosed. Log on to www.cdc.gov/CFS for the latest research and guidance on diagnosis and management. That's www.cdc.gov/CFS.
Get informed.
Get diagnosed.
Get help.
A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
KFBX.
It's 8:22 and 60 degrees in Fairbanks, and I'm talking with Dr. Nancy James, chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, and Sam Klein, student chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital and student rabbi at the Jewish Congregation of Fairbanks, about sexual assault, sexual abuse issues here in Alaska. And one of the things, Sam, that I wanted to talk to you about as a student studying the Torah, other ancient Jewish texts, what do these Jewish texts have to say about sexual violence in our culture? Because this is not a new issue, right? This is a problem that societies have been struggling with literally for thousands of years, right? What sort of things have you been learning about this?
That's right, Rob. Yes. So when we go to the Torah, which is, for all who aren't familiar with the term, it's part of what Christians consider the Old Testament, the first 5 books of Moses. And it remarks on a culture in the wider society that has allowed sexual violence to become a rampant reality, right? That's what it's addressing.
Okay.
And when I was invited to be on the radio with you and with Reverend Nancy James, I looked into what Jewish institutions are saying on this emerging issue. And I found a wonderful text study from the Hadar Institute in New York. I want to give them credit for retrieving these texts, and Rabbi Viva Richman, who did the legwork in seeking it out. So what I want to present to you is a text that talks about sexual violence in a specific case from the book of Deuteronomy, which is the final book of the 5, Devarim in Hebrew. And so it goes as follows. This is chapter 22, verse 23 through 27. If there is a maiden that is a virgin betrothed to a man, and a man finds her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out unto the gate of that city, and you shall stone them with stones so that they die, the maiden because she did not cry, being in the city, and the man because he has humbled his neighbor's wife, or afflicted his neighbor's wife. Mm-hmm. So you shall be rid of the evil in your midst. But if the man finds the maiden that's betrothed in the field, and the man take hold of her and lie with her, and then only the man that lay with her shall die. But unto the maiden you shall do nothing. There is no sin worthy of death in the maiden. For as when a man rises against his neighbor and slays him, so is this matter. For he found her in the field, the betrothed maiden cried out, and there was none to save her.
Wow.
So there's all sorts, with a modern lens, there's all sorts of problematic things going on with this text that you might have found, right?
I was hoping you
would
poke
absolutely.
that out a little bit.
You got to acknowledge it, right? Because
Right.
we're living in 2019. So,
Right.
why does the man have to cry out
Right,
to not be
right.
guilty? And is this only for the case of a betrothed virgin, or why doesn't it apply to more cases than that? So clearly with the case of the man here, he's sleeping with someone else's betrothed. Clearly he has no excuse. He's condemnable in the eyes of the Torah. But for the woman, what we have here is a juxtaposition of 2 concepts, the city and the field. So why is it that she would be stoned for not crying out in the city? Well, so the Torah says if she wanted someone to save her, she could have cried out for help. In the field, there was no one to save her. But what I think is most important here, what I want to focus on, and for what the rabbis considered most crucial, is that the words are, there was no one to save her. And so what we have is another rabbinic text called Midrash, an expansion on the Torah, if you will, called Sifrei Devarim, which is a commentary on the book of Deuteronomy, a Midrash from the 3rd century in Israel. And it asks kind of critically of the Torah, how is it possible that she is culpable in the city and exempt in the field? And again, the most important line is the betrothed maiden cried out and there was no one to save her.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rabbis looked at this verse metaphorically because a literal interpretation essentially no longer makes sense anymore. Her urban or rural location is not really what's the main issue here. So rather, if there's someone to save her, whether in the city or the field, she is culpable. And if there is no one to save her, whether in the city or the field, she is exempt. And so the question that we have really is, in this system, is there someone to save her?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we move beyond the literal of Deuteronomy, we go to the metaphorical, the city now becomes a metaphor for a community or a culture that actually cares.
Oh, interesting.
Right? That actually acknowledges sexual violence as wrong and accepts responsibility to prevent it.
And believes people.
Right. Yeah. And on the contrary, the field becomes a metaphor for a place where there is no one to help and no one cares enough to defend her.
Wow. That is really interesting because, I mean, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about the different ways that people respond in a traumatic situation like that. Some people do yell. Some people, I mean, that's just because this is kind of a fight or flight thing. Some people freeze, and that's just the way that we're wired, you know? And different people respond in different ways. It's not something, it's instinctual. It's not something you can control. But I don't know, it's very interesting to me. And then I think, you know, some people, they say like, why didn't you cry out? Why didn't you fight back? And sometimes the instincts is to shut down and to like protect. I mean, Nancy, you're nodding your head. I don't know if you have thoughts on this too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of time victims later feel bad because they didn't cry out or they didn't fight. But absolutely, you do not have to fight back to be victimized. And lots of times, like you said, it's just a survival thing. You become very quiet and still.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's shock. It's not like we go in training for this. I mean.
Yeah. Right.
You just go with instincts at that point. So that's very interesting. But what I hope brings some people some solace is that, I mean, so how old is are we talking about with the Torah? How long ago are they talking about these things? I mean, we're talking thousands of years ago.
Sure.
Right?
So if you look at it from an academic perspective, you know, the books of the Torah evolved over time, definitely BCE.
Right.
But in different stages. If you look at it from a theological perspective, we say it was revealed on Mount Sinai, you know, date TBD, but these are texts as ancient as you can get.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I mean, handed down from God, so you could say from these have existed forever. They just were put into words at a certain time period, right?
Yeah. And if you ask me, my perspective is that these are words from a given context, but in every century and every age, the task that Jews have met is these are words that can provide meaning to our time.
Right.
And that's why you have commentaries in every single age up to our current period.
Right, absolutely. Very interesting take on that. We got to take another break. It's 8:30 and 60 degrees above in Fairbanks. I'm talking with Dr. Nancy James, chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, and Sam Klein, student chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital and student rabbi at Jewish Congregation of Fairbanks, about sexual assault and abuse issues here in Alaska. This is News Radio 970 KFBX Fairbanks. We'll be back in a moment.
Criticism from both sides of the aisle to President Trump saying he might not tell the FBI if a foreign country offers him dirt on a 2020 political rival. He spoke exclusively to ABC's George Stephanopoulos.
If foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer responding.
To say that it's okay for foreign countries to interfere in our elections with motives that are not what's in the interest of the American people? Disgraceful, shocking.
And a Republican Senator, Lindsey Graham, is calling Mr. Trump's comments a mistake. The House Intelligence Committee has issued subpoenas to former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and former Trump campaign deputy Rick Gates. Both were critical witnesses in the Russia investigation. A suspected attack on 2 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman today. The U.S. Navy is on the scene. Scott Goldberg, ABC News.
The Apartminternet, a realm of cyberspace where you can find a new place to be any of the limitless pet-loving yous you so choose. Like the you who wants felines in your here and meow. Or the you who has an affinity for a more fetching species.
Good boy.
Or the you who yearns for a life full of porpoise. Become your best animal-loving self with limitless listings on Apartments.com. Change your apartment, change the world.
White Spruce Trailers has the biggest trailer selection in the state, with over 600 in-stock trailers to choose from. Getting a permanent change of station, White Spruce has enclosed cargo trailers from 6 feet all the way up to 26 feet and everything in between. Their cargo trailers are top-name brands, Cargo Mate, Mission, and Mirage, and they're all backed by a full-service warranty. White Spruce Trailers, 10 Mile Richardson, or online at whitespruce.com.
White Spruce Trailer Sales, whitespruce.com. Whitespruce.com.
In some parts around here, the roads require a lot more than just the basics. Now, if that's you, drive like a pro in a 2019 GMC. Their entire lineup is built to take on the unexpected and designed to meet your needs, like the powerful presence of the 2019 GMC Sierra, offering excellent towing capability, power, and muscle, and the world's first multi-pro tailgate. Now, if an SUV is more your style, then take command of the road in a 2019 GMC Acadia. Because your life is constantly on the move, Acadia accommodates up to 7 in style, comfort, and space. If you want a smaller SUV with plenty of power, then traverse the wilderness in a 2019 GMC Terrain, where styling meets exceptional utility and performance, offering a fold-flat front passenger seat, 60/40 split folding second-row seats, and hands-free power liftgate. Live like a pro. We are professional grade. GMC. Visit GMC of Fairbanks.
Hey everybody, Geraldo here. My old friend and mentor, my boss, Roger Ailes at Fox News, used to say the only thing in the middle of the road, kid, is roadkill. You got to pick a lane. I defied him. I defy everybody. I'm in the middle of the road. Check out my podcast. You'll find out. Roadkill. We talk about the most pressing issues, most controversial issues of the day. Listen to Roadkill with Geraldo. Find it on the free iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check it out.
Information. Not in 2021, after viral deepfakes have polluted the 2020 elections.
There's also, of course, the possibility that foreign governments could plant forged documents as well, among real ones.
In a way that would make it almost impossible to identify or rebut the fraudulent material.
Welcome to the wild, wild west of deep fakes. For what it's worth, Sherry Preston, ABC News.
You probably want to eat healthy, but getting enough organic fruits and vegetables into your diet every day is not only time-consuming, it's expensive. That's why at Texas Superfood, we've created a blend of the best USDA organic, vine-ripened fruits and vegetables, powerful enzymes and probiotics, and energizing herbs, all in a convenient capsule or powder. We call it Texas Superfood Complete Organic. Hi, I'm naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, and I invented Texas Superfood almost 20 years ago with one goal in mind: to help people like you who lead busy lives get the all-natural nutrition that every one of us needs and deserves. So if you can't, won't, or don't eat all your organic fruits and vegetables every day, Texas Superfood Complete Organic makes eating healthy easy. See our full line of quality nutritional products at TexasSuperfood.com or call us at 855-TEXAS-55. That's 855-TEXAS-55. TexasSuperfood.com.
In May of 2000, Dave O'Carnacar skied the full descent of Mount Everest. Every day, somewhere in the world, someone base jumps off a bridge, an antenna, a building, or a mountain peak. At Mavericks, surfers brave 60-foot faces and a punishing rock bottom to ride the world's largest waves. Across suburbia, skateboarders transform curbs, stairs, swimming pools, and cement flood basins into Everests of their own making. In the old days, we called these people adventurers. Now, we call them extreme sports enthusiasts. There's a group of people who jump out of helicopters into 30-foot ocean swells, race vehicles through war zones, chase hurricanes, fly through walls of fire, and maneuver zodiacs through flash floods, all in an effort to save lives. We call these people the Air Force Reserve. The Air Force Reserve. Live the extreme.
KFBX.
In Fairbanks today, showers and thunderstorms. Partly sunny with a high in the mid-70s. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms with a low in the mid-50s. In North Pole today, showers and thunderstorms. Partly sunny with a high in the mid-70s. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms with a low in the low 50s. In Nenana today, showers and thunderstorms with a high in the mid-70s. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms with a low in the low 50s. And in Delta Junction today, showers and thunderstorms with a high in the low 70s. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms with a low in the low 50s. It is 59 degrees in Fairbanks, 58 degrees in Delta Junction, 62 degrees in Nenana, and 50 degrees down in Denali. And we got Dr. Nancy James here, chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, and Sam Klein, student chaplain at FMH and student rabbi at the Jewish Congregation of Fairbanks, talking about sexual assault, sexual abuse issues here in Alaska. And before the break, we were talking about things that the Torah had to say about that, and some sort of interesting interpretations on how the community affects the assault and how that kind of relates to it in terms of creating a community that listens is kind of, I think, what you were alluding to a little bit there with that that story from Deuteronomy, right? Like, is the community there to respond or not is a big factor when it comes to sexual assault issues.
That's right, Rob. Yeah.
Agree with. Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we look at texts of Torah and texts of rabbinics, we look at an ideal society that we could actually put effort into bringing into our own world. And when we looked at the text before the break of the text of the city in the field, we have a metaphor for a culture in which people care and a culture, or alternatively, a culture in which people don't. So if a culture that people care, are our bodies safe and protected and defended, or when these cases of sexual violence arise, do we turn a blind eye? Do we make excuses and say something terrible like, oh, she was asking for it, or she wanted it? Mm-hmm. And so when we look at our own culture and ask ourselves, are we a culture of people that care and a culture of people that don't? I think the saddest thing, but a true commentary that we all need to I think, absorb is what the Me Too movement made clear, and that all of us know someone who's a victim of sexual violence. It's incredibly rampant and incredibly present today more than ever. And so when we look at it, what the Torah provided as an ideal for us, we realize that we are failing to become a community that cares, and that there's more work to be done there.
Right, absolutely. And Nancy, one of the things that we had talked about last time in regard to sexual assault issues was that I want to make it clear, I hope women understand, it's your body. You get to control what happens to it all the time.
Right.
There's no like, oh, I created these expectations, like, oh, I told him I wanted to, so I needed to follow through on that. Like, no, you can change your mind at any time. Anytime.
That's absolutely right.
I mean, if I tell you I'm going to like wash your car and then I decide, no, I'm not, like, you know, I don't like, this is not something that I think women should feel like, oh, because I just get that sense sometimes that that's an attitude that I think is being presented like, well, you know, she owed it to him, or, you know, she built up expectations with him, therefore she had to follow through.
Right.
Like, no.
That's right.
No, you can change your mind any darn time you want.
That's right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Just making that clear.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, are there any other misconceptions you feel are going around when it comes to this issue and that you personally want to clarify with women? Because I hate to say it, I just hear, I mean, that was one. Another one that we talked about last time was that men aren't in control; they can't help themselves. That was an interesting one. We talked a little bit about, I mean, I like to say I grew up in a good Christian home, you know, where you were supposed to wait until marriage. Mm-hmm. As a kid in my teens and early 20s, there were opportunities I had, and certainly different people have different levels of discipline, but that's not the woman's responsibility. If the guy doesn't have discipline, that's his deal. It's up to him to restrain himself.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
It's not the woman's fault that this guy can't can't stop himself.
Honestly, I think sometimes in sexual assault, there's just a lack of human respect. And,
Absolutely, too.
And so we respect the other gender. We respect all people. If we do it for religious reasons, it's because we're made in the image of God. But as women, when we are invited out on a date, that's it.
Right.
All we expect to do is maybe eat.
I don't
dinner.
care how expensive it was.
I don't care where he takes you.
Right,
That's
exactly.
the only expectation. And you can get up and walk out of that dinner at any time.
Absolutely.
But that's a form of respect for the men you're with.
Right.
I respect you enough to deal with the fact that maybe I'm not interested in you, maybe this isn't working out, and I can walk away from this at any moment. But that's just a sign of respect for the person you're with.
Right.
You respect them enough to say they can deal with whatever I'm going to find acceptable here.
Right. And one thing I struggle with, too, is the idea in our culture, a lot of cultures, that women are supposed to be nice all the time and polite and never say anything mean. And little girls are raised that way. Be a good little girl, be polite, say please and thank you, and do it. The teachers, the authorities tell you and stuff. And sometimes I feel like because we do want to address too that this happens to men too.
Oh, it does.
So, and we made a point of that last time. We want to make that point again. Absolutely. But you can be mean if you need to.
Absolutely,
right? You can stand up for yourself, and don't let people take advantage of the fact that you're a nice person. Like, draw a line and have a line in the sand, have a line in the concrete. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's right. I would say to every person out there, speak the words of truth you find in your heart, and that's a respect for everybody. Do not try to be pleasing to other people, but be pleasing to the truth. Speak your words of truth.
Right.
And if you are developing a relationship, that's a good thing. But if it's not going or you don't want it, you just say, this is not right for me. And there is no guilt about saying that.
Right.
And so whenever you are involved with another person at any point, walk away.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, do you have any thoughts on things going on in our culture now that play a role in sexual violence, either for or against it? I mean, talking about it clearly is one of the things we're doing to try and work against it. But I mean, as a guy, one of the things that I see is, the locker room talk kind of thing is I don't know, does the Torah talk at all about locker room talk? I think it does, right? Well, I mean, I know the Bible talks about, think about that, what is good and holy, ponder those things, and the tongue is as a knife kind of like elements, but I don't know any of this.
Yeah, I don't think the Torah says anything about locker room talk per se. However, I mean, we certainly focus a lot on the words that we speak.
Right.
But I think, in this case, it's not just the words, it's also the actions that we take. And, when we think about what we're doing in today's world, it's not just, I don't want to put all the onus on the responsibility on men. Men, when you're in that intimate situation, how are you going to treat your partner?
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue at large here is really the culture in which we are sending our young people out, and the culture in which we're responding to people of all ages when these acts of sexual violence occur. So I think the onus is on education, so not just building awareness that we have, but actually bringing it out and teaching people so that when they're sent out to college and they're sent out to the workplace, they actually have clear ideas and definitions of where the boundaries should be,
mm-hmm.
and the protocol of how to act in areas of gray.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But I also think that there's a lot to be done in reshaping what happens after an act of sexual violence. I don't know if you've looked at some of the media around the paranoia going on in corporate America and government institutions and that kind of thing, but there's a paranoia around the interaction between men and women in the workplace right now, where men are so concerned of being called out for sexual violence.
That's true.
That they'll all of a sudden say, you know what, I'm just not going to even expose myself to this potential problem, and I'll just remove, call it women from the workplace in the first place.
Right.
Just completely avoiding the problem.
Or not work with them on projects,
Right.
not get involved in that kind of way. You might get in. Yeah, I can see
Right.
that. Mm-hmm.
And I think part of this paranoia, the source of it, is a lack of a path forward for those who feel concerned or are potentially perpetrators of sexual violence. You've seen in the media that we have like an intense amount of shaming going on of top executives and such. And not to say that they don't deserve it, but it's clearly creating a culture where men don't even want to risk it, right?
Right.
And so what I think I would most advocate for is an approach in which we allow for people to make some sort of repentance. We call it in Judaism tshuva. It's a path of return. And so there are steps that you can take to make amends, to rebuke someone, without shaming them to the point that their job is taken away and their career is over. And I think that might temper this paranoia to the point of a constructive path forward of saying, you're not going to be called out for saying somebody looks nice. You're going to be called out for doing sexual violence, meeting justice with true acts of sexual violence, and path forward for everyone to make amends, no matter what culture they were brought up in.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, because you've got people like Harvey Weinstein who clearly had a long pattern of reprehensible stuff that, for me, like, I hope he comes around someday, but he needed to be done and out of what he was doing. But then you've got other people who, who have done things that are probably questionable, but were not, like rubbing shoulders and that sort of stuff, like stuff that they probably shouldn't have been doing, may or may not have been aware. But is there a way that we can just not the answer is not always, you're done, you're gone, like you're saying. But maybe we say, you did this, you need to make it right. But I do see what you're saying. Like, we tend to say, you did this, you're gone. You're out of politics. You're out of whatever business you were in, and that's it. And I can see, how that is scary. And I can say, as a guy in the working world, it's something I think about a lot. Definitely.
Right. I think making a distinction between those who actually want to make amends and the distinction
Right.
those who are in the area of gray and don't know a path forward.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, those like Harvey Weinstein, that kind of thing, that we're told over and over again that you're doing the wrong thing and still committed these acts. Public shaming, rebuke is warranted.
Right.
But for those that are not in that case, right, that they've that they're just uncertain.
Yeah.
It's good for them to know that there's a way to improve their behavior without sending them right off to jail.
Right, absolutely. We got to take another break. It's 8:49, 61 degrees above in Fairbanks. We'll be back. We'll be back in a moment.
Fairbanks Collision is proud to provide quality auto body repair to Interior Alaska, including Eielson, Fort Wainwright, and all those who serve. When quality matters, trust your vehicle to Fairbanks Collision and Glass, 1804 South Cushman. Online at fairbankscollision.com.
It was a personal loss, but it was also our whole family's loss. When a family loses a loved one, Chapel of Chimes understands. They're a family too.
When my husband passed away, the loss was painful, but I tried to remember the happy times.
Chapel of Chimes has served our community for many years and recognizes the legacy in all of us. When making funeral arrangements, talk to their dedicated staff. They can help you make your ceremony as special as your loved one and honor their legacy of life. Chapel of Chimes, online at legacyalaska.com.
Visit the Prospector to prepare for all of your summer activities, whether it's hiking, camping, fishing, floating the river, biking, or working. The friendly staff at the Prospector can help you choose the right gear from brands like the North Face, Under Armour, and Keen. Stop by today at 1512 Cushman.
Need a little throttle therapy? Get yourself into the Bigger Thing sales event at Jeans and get bigger incentives like up to 20% off select brand new trucks. Big trucks like brand new Ram 3500, the most capable heavy-duty truck ever. And bigger deals like 0% financing OAC or up to $15,000 in combined incentives and bonus cash. The Bigger Thing sales event at Jeans. Big deal? You bet. Limited time offers may end without notice. 0% on select vehicles with approved credits. Dealer details. Jeans. On Cushman at Van Horn or online at jeanschrysler.com.
The Big Eye Pub and Lounge is the place to be in Fairbanks. Every second and fourth Wednesday is comedy open mic night, and every Thursday it's open mic night. You can always learn more at the Big Eye's Facebook or stop by. The Big Eye Pub and Lounge, your downtown hometown on the river.
The apartment internet, a realm of cyberspace where you can find a new place to be any of the limitless and commuteless yous you so choose. like the you who snuggles up to a few more sweet, sweet REM cycles. Or the you who eases into the day with some Tai Chi, followed by chai tea. Become your best work-life balancing self with limitless listings on Apartments.com. Change your apartment, change the world.
Your Alaska Geico agent, Monica Johnson, is here to help you save money. Monica can help with insurance for your auto, motorcycle, ATV, boat, or snow machine. She can even help you with a homeowner's or renter's policy. Monica is proud to serve the interior and will deliver the personal service you need with the savings you love. See how much you could save on insurance today with Monica Johnson, your Geico agent serving Fairbanks. Call Monica at 452-7145 or log on to geico.com/the valley.
Underground. We don't know who's who. If people's ideas are not given breath and space, they will hide their true colors. Then we don't know who the dangerous people are. When you see the idiots in hoods, or the idiots who say that all white people are wicked, you know that these are not reasonable people whose words and ideas deserve credence. But when something is suppressed, it's given surreptitious value. It's almost as if it's being banished and made taboo, which makes others believe that, hey, there must be something worthwhile here. No, you have to keep this free speech, even ugly speech, open so those with terrible ideas can be identified publicly. It may not be pretty, but it's real. Life itself needs to be uncomfortable for us to remain free. So don't give things power they don't deserve by stifling them.
Find out more about Dan's life on Facebook. Search @French and Friends. That's @French and Friends.
This is Dan's life.
Honey, where's the bee pollen?
It's in the same cabinet as the banana leaf glue.
Found it! I'm making a wheatgrass shake. You want one?
Sure. I'll be out back churning the compost.
Can you bring in some filtered rainwater when you're done?
Okay. Nuts! I just spilled potato-based ink all over my hemp work pants.
That's okay, dear. We can shred the pants and use the fibers for insulation.
Great idea. For now, I'll just wear these plastic garbage bags for pants.
The fact is, it's easy to be smart about the environment and save money without going to extremes. You can start by looking for products with the Energy Star label, including appliances, heating and air conditioning equipment, windows, and insulation. The Alliance to Save Energy has lots of other energy-saving ideas. Visit us on the web at ase.org and get our free Power Smart booklet. Because with a few smarts, you can save money, save energy, and live comfortably.
Honey.
What?
Never wear brown shoes with black garbage bag pants.
Hi, this is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Did you know that 2/3 of Americans have library cards? So what's stopping you? Drop by your local library today and get a library card. It'll be the smartest card in your wallet.
A message from the American Library Association's Campaign for America's Libraries and ALA Library Champions. For more information, visit ilovelibraries.org.
Crime Alert, I'm Nancy Grace. Breaking crime news now. DNA solves a 37-year-old Jane Doe murder, confirming the ID of the victim and suspect. Police say Mary Silvani killed in 1982 by James Curry, who later died in prison on another murder charge. Cybercrimes cost victims $2.7 billion 2018, according to a new FBI report. There were more than 350,000 complaints filed. A study using FBI crime statistics say St. Louis is the most dangerous big city in the U.S. For the latest crime and justice news, go to crimeonline.com. This crime alert brought to you by Simply Safe. When you have a good security system like Simply Safe, things just feel different. They have some of the fastest response times in the industry, no contracts, no hidden fees, free shipping, a 60-day money-back guarantee at simplysafe.com/Nancy. Simplysafe.com/Nancy. With this crime alert, I'm Nancy Grace.
KFBX.
It's 8:55 and 61 degrees in Fairbanks. And again, I'm here with Dr. Nancy James, chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, and Sam Klein, student chaplain at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, and student rabbi at the Jewish Congregation of Fairbanks, talking about sexual assault issues here in Alaska. And one of the things that I want to talk with you about, Sam, is that's very important to me, is how can we stand up and advocate for victims? How can we change this? What is your study? What have your studies taught you about those sort of things?
Absolutely. So I think part of it is recognizing in our culture that we have a bit of hypocrisy going on between the expectations that we hold women up to in terms of, piety and modesty, that kind of thing. Right. And at the same time, our culture sets them up for basically exposure to becoming victims and survivors of sexual violence. And there's a story I wanted to share with you that's actually really powerful. It goes to the origins of the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah that's usually celebrated before around the time of Christmas. So this is a midrash, again, expansion on the Torah, that talks about a time in BCE when Jews were basically under religious persecution from the Seleucid Greek Empire. You might have seen the movie Braveheart. Do you remember that opening scene where the local ruler is forcing the bride to sleep with them before they can sleep with their husband? I think
yeah, there's a term for that I just heard. Right, I can't remember what it is, but
yeah, I think it's us primus noctus, something like that in
yes,
Latin.
Exactly.
Right. And so a similar situation was happening to Israel, being forced upon them by the Greeks. There was all sorts of rules of religious persecution going on, and this was kind of a cherry on the sundae in a really negative way, if you can imagine.
Right.
And one time there was a marriage proposed between the daughter of the high priest and another member of this clan that led the rebellion, the Hasmoneans. Israel had refrained from marriages for 3 years because of this rule, but now they're approaching a wedding day.
Okay.
And the bride is seated on a palanquin, and which is one of those like wheelless sort of chariots, if you will. And at the feast, you have all these great men of Israel there to honor the wedding. And Hannah, the bride here, she says, she actually stands up and she tears off her garments. She exposes herself before all these great men of Israel. And they rise up actually to kill her. They're so offended by her immodesty. And she says in response, "Listen, my brothers and uncles, so what? I stand naked before you righteous men with no sexual transgression, and yet you get all incensed. And you're not becoming incensed about sending me into the hands of an uncircumcised man, this Seleucid ruler, who will abuse me.
Wow.
You've got something to learn from Shimon and Levi, the brothers of Dinah, who were just two men who became incensed on behalf of their sister, and they murdered a walled city, such as Shechem, which is Nablus today, and gave up their lives for the name of God. And God helped them, and they were not destroyed. And you are 5 brothers, and you, youth of the priesthood, are more than 200 men. Put your faith in God, and God will help you." And it goes on further, but basically in the story we have is sort of a power play of men over women's bodies, right?
Right, yeah. Men have been trying to control and still trying to control women's bodies for a very, very, very long time. I'm afraid we're about out of time. Nancy, you want to throw out some information for folks who might be looking for help? You got any websites, phone numbers that people can go to really quick?
Right. Interior Center for Nonviolent Living is a wonderful place to turn to. You can call Alaska 211, go to my grandma's house. And there's another place called Strong Hearts Native Hotline. Very good.
Thank you, Nancy and Sam, so much for coming in and talk about this really important issue. Appreciate it so much. Sam, have fun in L.A. this winter when you head back.
Thanks, appreciate it, Rob.
News Radio 970 KFBX Fairbanks. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
From ABC News, I'm Scott Goldberg. Lawmakers from both political parties are speaking out after President Trump said he'd listen to foreign governments coming to him with dirt on his 2020 opponents. His comments in this exclusive interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos.
If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your